The scream echoed through the underground chamber, but the sound did not fade like normal echoes. Instead, it twisted, repeating itself around Farid, as if hundreds of invisible mouths were screaming with him, whispering, laughing, crying all at once. The lantern light shook in his hand, blue flame throwing long shadows across the jagged walls, and the symbols carved into the stone pulsed like open eyes blinking, watching him breathing. With him, the fingers that had brushed his cheek slid across his jawline, moving toward his throat, slow and deliberate, and Farid slapped the air, but his hand passed through nothing. Yet the sensation remained icy cold, lingering like frostbite, and his breath began to tremble. He forced himself to stand, swaying, the floor uneven under his feet, shaped like waves of stone, and the chamber smelled of soil mixed with something metallic, something like old blood, dried and forgotten. Farid whispered Sana, his voice quivering, and from somewhere deeper in the darkness, footsteps answered, not echoing on stone, instead echoing directly inside his skull, barefoot. Steps, slow, steady, approaching, closer with every heartbeat. The blue flame stretched outward, and the shadows along the walls bent backward and impossible, angles as if the light were pulling something out of them, shapes forming half bodies, eyeless, faces, mouths stitched shut, arms reaching without skin fingers, bone white. Farid stumbled backward, clutching the lantern, until his knuckles went numb. He wanted to scream again, but fear clogged his throat. From the far corner, a woman's voice rose, soft, trembling, sounding like a sob but layered with something ancient. She called his name, Farid, and the voice came again, nearer, this time dripping with pain. "Help me, please help me." Her tone forced tears into his eyes, because it was Sana's voice, or at least it sounded like her voice, echoing the same softness she used when asking for comfort as a child, and he pointed the lantern toward the direction of the voice. The blue light revealed a long corridor stretching endlessly, walls closing tight around it, and at the far end a silhouette stood, hair long, reaching her waist, body thin, trembling but alive. She whispered again, "Farid, come to me, I am here, I waited for you." And his chest ached with hope. He stepped forward, forgetting pain, forgetting the stitched mouths crowding the chamber, forgetting the whispering in the walls. But the moment his foot touched the mouth of the corridor, the lantern dimmed, shadows thickened, and the ground beneath him shook. Something grabbed his ankle, claws curling around bone, tugging hard, nearly breaking him. He screamed and kicked wildly, the claws tearing flesh through his boot, and the walls surrounding him pulsed again, breathing faster, deeper, hungrier. The shadows crawled along the floor, climbing his legs like living vines, whispering his name, hundreds of voices overlapping. "Farid, stay, you belong, we waited." He swung the lantern, downward flame, bursting blue light washing over the floor, and the hands retreated, melting into the stone. The corridor ahead yawned open wider, drawing a cold wind from nowhere, and Sana's silhouette called again. He limped forward, ignoring the burning pain, and his leg whispering her name over and over, "Sana, Sana, Sana," each repetition a prayer and a curse. The corridor seemed to twist with every step, the walls closing in, then stretching out, the floor slanting downward, then upward, gravity shifting air, thinning his breath, growing sharp, his muscles weak. The silence between the whispering voices grew thicker, heavier, until it felt like weight on his chest. And then the corridor opened into a small circular chamber. Inside the chamber, dozens of candles burned without flames, small orbs of glowing white light floating above, wicks hovering in the air, defying nature. The air hummed, vibrating his teeth, and at the center of the room stood Sana, eyes wide, mouth stitched just like before, but she looked clearer, her skin warmer, human. She raised her hands toward him, fingers trembling, shaking head, nodding, and tears streamed down her cheeks, her sobbing loud. Through her stitched lips, she stepped toward him, and her knees buckled. She collapsed to the ground, arms shaking, body convulsing. Farid rushed to her, dropping the lantern beside them, pulling her into his arms, whispering that he was here, that she was safe, that he would never leave her again. Her hands clung to his shirt, gripping with desperate strength, but her tears burned like acid on his skin, sizzling cloth and flesh. Sana pointed to her mouth, threads, thick black leather sewn deep into flesh knots buried under skin. Farid hesitated, hands trembling, but he saw the agony in her eyes, the silent pleading, and he pulled the threads. They resisted, sinking deeper, tearing skin, blood pouring thick and dark, and the moment the final thread snapped, Sana gasped like a drowning person. Breaking surface, she screamed, an animal scream that shook the floor, her lungs expelled air that smelled like grave. Soil, she grabbed Farid's face and whispered, "Run before they wake up. Run, Farid, run." The candle lights blinked out. Darkness slammed into the room. Farid grabbed Sana, trying to drag her toward the corridor, but she shoved him away with unnatural strength, her eyes rolling back, skin crawling like insects moving beneath. He shouted her name, but she screamed again, telling him to go, in the chamber walls cracked a roar rising from below, the floor shaking violently, stones, crumbling symbols exploding into dust, something beneath them trying to rise. Farid ran stumbling, squeezing through the corridor walls, scraping his arms, carving blood onto the stone behind him. He did not know where he was going, only and that he had to move. The voice of Sana echoed behind him, fading, drowning beneath monstrous growls. The floor tilted. Downward he fell, rolling through darkness, smashing into something wooden. The lantern flew from his grip, hit the ground, and shattered, blue flame spreading like liquid across the floor, illuminating a vast underground hall. Skeletons lined the walls, hundreds, maybe thousands, arranged, standing upright, skulls facing forward, jaws open, silent screams carved into bone. Farid crawled backward, breath shaking, staring at their hollow eyes, and then one skeleton turned its skull toward him, bones creaking, joints cracking, dusty fingers twitching. Farid scrambled to his feet, but the skeleton stepped forward, ribs rattling, and suddenly every skull in the hall snapped toward him in unison. All of them stared. The blue flame poured across the floor, and wherever the fire touched bone, the skeletons began to move, heads twisting, arms reaching, legs stepping as if the fire brought them life. They approached slowly, methodically, surrounding him. Farid's back hit a giant stone pillar, and before he could move, an arm bone lashed across his chest, pinning him, skeletal fingers wrapping around his throat, squeezing harder. The hall filled with a rising whisper, like air being sucked through hollow throats, saying his name over and over, "Farid, Farid, Farid." He kicked wildly, breaking bone, but it grew back instantly, reforming, snapping into place, twisting stronger. The other skeletons pressed close, dozens of arms reaching, hundreds of fingers touching, and the bones began carving symbols into his skin, scratching words into his flesh, the same ancient writing from the walls, lined spirals, eyes, the pain excruciating, as if knives sliced deep, but no cuts appeared, only burning beneath the skin. His vision blurred, breath fading, his body shaking. Then a deafening roar shook the hall. The floor split open again, and something massive surged upward, a column of darkness, pure black, rising like a tornado, teeth forming along its edges, eyes blinking open within its surface, thousands of eyes all staring into him. The skeletons dropped lifeless, collapsing instantly, and Farid fell to his knees, gasping. The black column bent, lowering itself to his height, and a face emerged from it, pale, human-like, yet stretched, wrong mouth, too wide eyes, too many teeth, too sharp. The voice that came from it was the same voice that whispered in the walls earlier, "We waited long. Farid, we knew you would come. You are chosen. You carry blood of this place." Farid shook his head, screaming that he wanted Sana, not this, not fate, not madness, but the face smiled, stretching its grin across the entire column, and the eyes blinked in rows. It spoke again. "Sana is ours," she opened the door. She gave herself to the house. She offered her soul to awaken us. Farid punched the ground, screaming Sana's name, tears falling, mixing with dust. He stood, defiant even though his legs shook, shouting that he would take her back. He would burn this place. He would, destroy every creature inside. The house laughed, a deep, low rumble that shook rubble from the ceiling, and replied, "You cannot destroy what lives beneath the earth. You cannot take what belongs to us unless you give something in return." Farid asked what the house wanted. Voice shaking, the face leaned close, breath cold on his skin, whispering, "We want you." The hall erupted into sound, the skeletons rattling upright again, crawling toward him, the column of darkness splitting into serpents of shadow that twisted around his arms, legs, neck, binding him, pulling, lifting, dragging him toward a door that had not existed seconds ago, a door made of bone and blood, pulsing like muscle. The serpents whispered promises of power, of truth, of understanding, the nature of death, whispering that Farid could rewrite the world if he surrendered, whispering that Sana would be freed if he gave himself, willingly, whispering that existence outside the house meant nothing, whispering that life was a dream and the house was reality. Farid screamed, refusing, pulling against the shadows, muscles tearing, but he did not stop. The shadows roared, tightening, but he pushed harder, kicking, twisting, collapsing forward, pulling himself free, skin tearing, bleeding on stone. He ran again, shadows chasing teeth snapping walls, rippling the floor breaking open. Beneath every step, but he ran until the hall ended at another staircase spiraling upward into darkness. He threw himself onto the stairs, climbing breath-ragged bones cracking, behind him skeletons crawling up walls, shadows reaching up steps screaming. His name and Sana's voice, echoing somewhere above or below, or inside him calling, "Farid, come back, come back, come back." He kept climbing until the staircase exploded into blinding light, and he found himself pushed through a wooden trapdoor slamming into another room, dust flying the trapdoor, crashing shut beneath him, sealing the darkness away. Farid lay on the wooden floor shaking, bleeding, sobbing, and for the first time, he realized something terrifying. He had not climbed upward into safety. He was deeper inside the mansion than ever before, and the house began whispering again. "Welcome home.